You've prayed, you've believed, you've cried quietly in the middle of the night when nobody else was watching. You've asked God, when is it going to happen? When will the promise come to pass? You've been faithful in the waiting, but deep inside you're weary. You've watched others move forward while you've stayed in the same place, wondering if maybe you missed your moment, if maybe God forgot about you. But he hasn't. The delay was not a denial, it was divine preparation. See, when God delays, he's not punishing you, he's positioning you. Every closed door, every not yet, every silent season, it all had purpose. You thought you were being held back, but God was building something within you that couldn't be built in comfort. You can't carry divine destiny with shallow roots. God needed time to deepen you, strengthen you, prepare you for what you asked him for. The waiting room was never meant to break you. It was meant to shape you. Some of the greatest blessings require the longest waits, because what's coming is not ordinary. God can't hand extraordinary favor to an unprepared vessel. He had to refine your character before he released your calling. You see, if he gave it to you too soon, it would have crushed you. But now you're stronger. You've learned how to pray when you felt nothing. You've learned to trust when you couldn't trace him. You've learned to worship when life made no sense. That's what the delay was doing, teaching you faith in the dark. And here's the truth. When the appointed time comes, everything will make sense. The connections will align, the doors will open, and the pieces will fit together perfectly. You'll look back and realize if God had answered earlier, you would have settled for less. The delay wasn't punishment. It was protection. So don't quit now. You're closer than you think. Heaven hasn't forgotten your name. God hasn't gone silent. He's working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail in your favor. Soon, you'll see what he was doing all along. Soon, you'll understand why he made you wait. And when that moment comes, you won't just receive the blessing, you'll carry the wisdom that came with the waiting. Hold on. The delay was necessary because destiny takes time. The delay is not denial. It's divine preparation. When life feels like it's standing still, when every door seems closed, and when heaven feels silent, it's easy to believe that maybe you've been overlooked. You start to wonder if God has forgotten your prayers, if maybe you missed your chance, or if his promises were never meant for you. But what if this waiting season is not a punishment at all? What if it's the very place where God is shaping you into who you were always meant to be? You see, what looks like a pause to you is actually progress in God's plan. He is preparing something so specific, so extraordinary that it can't be rushed. You are not being delayed. You are being developed. Every great promise in Scripture had a waiting period attached to it. Joseph waited in a prison before stepping into a palace. David was anointed king long before he ever sat on the throne. Even Jesus waited 30 years before stepping into public ministry. Waiting is not wasted time. It's the classroom of destiny. It's where faith matures and character deepens. You may not see what's happening on the surface, but beneath the quiet, God is planting strength inside of you that will sustain you when the blessing finally arrives. He's training you to stand, to trust, and to depend on him. Not on circumstances, not on timing, but on his faithfulness. In the delay, you're learning things you didn't know you needed. You're discovering who you are without the applause, without the results, without the visible progress. You're learning that God's presence is enough even when nothing else moves. This is the kind of faith that doesn't waver with the wind, the kind that stands firm even when there's no sign of change. God knows that quick blessings often fade fast. But blessings that come after preparation, those are the ones that last. And that's why he's taking his time with you. The foundation he's building is meant to hold the weight of what's coming next. It's tempting to compare your journey to others. You see people moving forward, reaching goals, celebrating victories while you're still in the waiting room. But comparison blinds you to what God is doing uniquely in you. Their timeline is not your timeline. Their path doesn't require what yours does. God is writing a story in your life that requires patience because it's going to be powerful. What he's preparing for you is greater than anything you could have rushed to achieve on your own. So instead of asking, why is it taking so long? Start asking, what is this delay preparing me for? That shift in perspective changes everything. God's preparation often looks like delay because he works in layers. Before he changes your situation, he changes you. Before he opens the door, he makes sure you're ready to walk through it with wisdom. You might feel ready for the blessing, but God sees the unseen weight it carries. He knows what success without preparation can do to a person. That's why he's refining you in the quiet, teaching humility, endurance, gratitude, and faith. Every day of waiting is molding your heart to hold the magnitude of his promise. So don't despise the delay. What feels like a detour is actually a design. God hasn't forgotten your prayers. He's perfecting the timing. One day soon, when the doors finally open and everything aligns, you'll understand why you had to wait. You'll realize that if it had happened any sooner, you wouldn't have been ready. The delay was not denial. It was divine preparation for something far greater than you could have imagined. And when that moment arrives, it will be clear God was never late. He was right on time. Waiting builds what comfort cannot. The truth is, comfort never produces strength. When everything is easy, when every prayer is instantly answered, when every path is smooth, we may enjoy the moment, but we don't grow from it. Growth comes through resistance. Strength is born in struggle. The waiting season is not punishment. It's the gym where your spirit trains, where your faith lifts the heavy weight of uncertainty, and where your endurance is built one quiet day at a time. You may not realize it now, but the season you're enduring is producing something in you that blessings alone could never give. In waiting, God does his most transformative work. He strips away the noise, the rush, and the need of control, teaching you to find peace in stillness and faith in silence. When you can't see progress, when the road feels long, and when nothing seems to change, that's where spiritual muscles are formed. It's in the not yet moments that you learn to trust God's character more than your circumstances. Comfort says, I want it now. Faith says, even if it takes longer, I'll still believe. That kind of faith can only be developed in the delay. Every time you choose to keep believing when you don't see results, your faith is stretching. Every time you get up after disappointment, your perseverance grows stronger. Every time you keep showing up, even when you feel forgotten, your endurance is being refined. This process is uncomfortable, yes, but it's essential because what's coming will demand more of you than what you have now. You're being strengthened to handle the weight of the blessing you prayed for. Think of a seed buried underground. It's surrounded by darkness, pressure, and silence. To the untrained eye, it looks lifeless. But in reality, it's breaking open, roots are forming, and life is beginning to grow. Waiting seasons feel exactly like that. You may feel buried, but you're not buried. You're being planted. God is doing something in the unseen that will one day be visible to everyone. And just like a plant can't rush its growth without breaking, you can't rush this process without losing what it's meant to produce in you. Waiting reveals what comfort hides. When everything is easy, we rely on ourselves. But when everything is uncertain, we are forced to rely on God. In the stillness, he teaches dependence, non-timing, not on people, but on his faithfulness. You learn that even when nothing seems to be happening, he's still working. Even when you don't feel strong, he's still holding you up. Comfort can make you forget who your source is, but waiting reminds you who your provider truly is. It's also in this waiting that God refines your motives. Sometimes he delays a blessing to make sure your heart is ready to handle it. What once came from desire can easily become pride if it's not purified in the waiting. God allows the delay to humble you, to clear your intentions, to make sure that when the blessing comes, it doesn't destroy you. Comfort might give you what you want, but waiting gives you what you need. So when you feel like nothing is changing, remember the soul doesn't show the roots, but they're growing deeper every day. Waiting is not wasted. Every tear, every prayer, every lonely night is watering something eternal inside you. You're not standing still, you're being built. One day you'll look back and thank God that he didn't answer too soon. You'll realize that the waiting gave you strength that comfort never could. You'll see that it wasn't about what you were waiting for, but about who we're becoming in the waiting. Because waiting builds faith, patience, and character. The kind of qualities that last forever. Comfort may make life easy, but waiting makes your spirit unshakable. God is positioning you, not punishing you. It's easy to misinterpret delay and struggle as signs that you've done something wrong or that God is disappointed in you. When plans fall apart, when doors close, or when nothing unfolds the way you imagined, your heart begins to whisper, maybe I failed. Maybe I'm being punished. But what if this is not punishment at all? What if this is placement? What if the very things that feel like setbacks are actually the strategic moves of a loving God, positioning you exactly where you need to be for what's next? God's positioning rarely looks like progress. Often it looks like confusion. You thought the job you lost was the end of stability, but it was actually the beginning of your calling. You thought the relationship that ended was rejection, but was God's redirection. You thought the opportunity that slipped away was failure, but it was protection from something that wasn't made for you. You see, God sees the entire map while you only see the road right in front of you. He knows what needs to shift, who needs to exit, and which doors must stay closed so that when he opens the right one, you'll be ready to walk through it without hesitation. Positioning often comes disguised as disappointment. God allows things to move, shake, and rearrange not to hurt you, but to align you. He's not trying to make you suffer. He's trying to make you fit. You prayed for destiny, but destiny requires divine setup. You asked for purpose, but purpose requires proper placement. Sometimes he has to move you away from comfort, away from certain people, away from places that feel familiar, because you can't grow in the soil you've outgrown. The pain you're feeling is often the sound of growth. In these seasons, faith is tested the most. When nothing makes sense and when you can't trace what God is doing, that's when you must choose to trust his hand even when you can't see his plan. Faith isn't proven in the light, it's proven in the dark. The uncomfortable truth is that God's positioning often includes isolation. Before he reveals you, he separates you, not to break you down, but to build you up privately so that when you step into the next season, you carry strength that can't be shaken by attention, pressure, or criticism. Every divine move has purpose behind it. Think of Joseph again, sold by his brothers, falsely accused, thrown into prison. If you looked at his life halfway through, it looked like punishment. But in reality, every betrayal was positioning. The pit led to Potiphar's house. The prison led to Pharaoh's palace. What looked like demotion was divine direction. The same is true for you. The events that felt like failure were simply God arranging the details of your destiny. When God positions you, he's setting the stage for something bigger than what you prayed for. You may have been praying for relief, but he's preparing revelation. You wanted breakthrough, but he's building legacy. What's happening to you is not as important as what's happening through you. Every delay, every redirection, every no is moving you closer to the place where your purpose will meet his promise. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what does this prepare me for? That's where peace lives, in trusting that God's hand is at work even when his plan feels hidden. The people who walked away, the opportunities that disappeared, the prayers that seemed unanswered, all of them were pieces of positioning. One day soon, you'll look back and realize that what felt like loss was actually alignment. You'll see that God didn't take anything from you that was meant to stay. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared, placed, and positioned for a purpose that required every single step. Nothing was wasted. Not a tear, not a delay, not a disappointment. God was writing your story with precision, moving every piece until the picture was perfect. What looks like loss right now will soon be revealed as divine strategy. God's positioning is not punishment, it's preparation for your promise. What you learn in the waiting will sustain you in the blessing. There's a reason God doesn't give you everything you ask for right away. Not because he wants to withhold good things, but because he wants you to be able to handle them when they finally arrive. Blessings carry weight. They require responsibility, wisdom, humility, and spiritual maturity. Without preparation, blessings can easily become burdens. That's why the waiting season matters so deeply. It's not wasted time. It's where you're being taught the lessons that will keep you grounded when life begins to accelerate. In the waiting, God trains your heart to depend on him. You learn to trust not because you see evidence, but because you've learned that he's faithful even in silence. Waiting reveals whether your faith is rooted in outcomes or in God himself. Anyone can believe when doors are flying open and prayers are being answered. True faith is built when nothing moves, when the promise feels far away, and when you choose to keep standing anyway. Those are the moments that build the kind of faith that doesn't crumble when storms come. Waiting teaches humility. When you have to watch others receive what you've been praying for, it tests your heart. It shows whether you can celebrate others while still waiting for your own breakthrough. That humility becomes the foundation of your character, ensuring that when it's your turn, pride doesn't ruin what grace has given. God delays not to discourage you, but to develop the qualities that will sustain the blessing once it comes. You can't rush that process. It takes time, pressure, and persistence. It's also in the waiting that you learn gratitude. When something takes a long time to arrive, you value it differently. You appreciate it deeply because you understand what it cost you. The tears, the prayers, the long nights of questioning. That gratitude will keep you from taking the blessing for granted. It will remind you that everything good comes from above, that your success is not self-made but grace-made. Gratitude keeps your heart soft in seasons of plenty. Without the waiting, you might forget where it all came from. The waiting season also teaches stewardship. God watches how you handle what's small before he gives you what's big. He sees how you manage the few opportunities, the little resources, the quiet seasons. If you can be faithful with the small, he knows you can be trusted with the great. Waiting is God's test of stewardship, a test not to break you, but to prove you're ready. When the blessing comes, you'll know how to handle it wisely because you learn discipline in the delay. Another powerful lesson learned in waiting is discernment. When you're desperate, everything looks like a door. But when you've waited and learned patience, you begin to recognize which doors are truly from God and which ones are distractions. Waiting sharpens your spiritual eyes. It teaches you that not every opportunity is divine and not every open door leads to destiny. The lessons you learn in this season become the protection for your next. When the blessing finally arrives, you'll realize that it's not just what you receive that matters. It's who you've become through the waiting. You'll carry strength that's been tested, wisdom that's been earned, and a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You'll walk differently because you've learned that blessings are not just about arrival, but about endurance. So don't despise the waiting. It's molding you into someone capable of holding what you've been praying for. The waiting season is the classroom of greatness. You're being taught patience, humility, gratitude, and faith, the very qualities that will sustain your blessing once it comes. One day when everything aligns and you finally see the promise fulfilled, you'll understand why you had to wait so long. The waiting didn't delay the blessing. It built the foundation that will keep it standing. The delay is protection, not rejection. When something doesn't work out the way you hope, when doors you prayed for remain closed, or when opportunities you thought were certain suddenly slip away, it's natural to feel rejected. It hurts. It makes you question your worth, your direction, and sometimes even your faith. But what if the thing that didn't happen was never rejection at all? What if it was God's mercy in disguise? His protection keeping you safe from something you couldn't see. Sometimes God's greatest kindness is in the doors he doesn't open. We often pray for what we want, believing we know what's best. But God, in his infinite wisdom, sees what's on the other side. He sees the heartbreak that would have followed that relationship, the disappointment behind that opportunity, the hidden pain in that path you thought was perfect. He sees it all, and sometimes his no is not punishment, but preservation. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and thank him for every unanswered prayer, for every delay that didn't make sense, because it was his hand shielding you from something that could have derailed your destiny. Protection doesn't always feel like love at first. In fact, it can feel like abandonment. When heaven goes silent, when plans crumble, when you see others receiving what you've been waiting for, it's easy to think you've been forgotten. But you haven't been forgotten. You've been covered. God hides you in seasons not to withhold, but to heal. He keeps you in waiting not to punish you, but to prepare you. What you see as delay, God sees as divine timing. What you interpret as rejection, he calls redirection. The truth is, some doors you're crying over were never meant to open. Some people you lost were never meant to stay. Some seasons you thought were over too soon actually ended right on time. God doesn't just bless through addition. He blesses through subtraction too. When he removes something, he's making room for something better. The delay is his way of rearranging your life so that when the real blessing comes, you'll be in the right place with the right heart, ready to receive it fully. It's in these moments that trust more than a word. It becomes a lifestyle. Trust means believing that even when God says no, he's still good. Even when he closes a door, he's still leading you to something greater. Faith isn't proven by how well we celebrate open doors. It's proven by how we respond when the doors close. That's where real maturity grows, in the tension between what you prayed for and what God allowed. When the delay stretches longer than expected, remember that God's timing is never careless. He doesn't delay without reason. Every day of waiting is part of his protection plan. He's not just guarding your future. He's guarding your heart. He knows what you can handle, and he knows what would have harmed you if it came too soon. The blessing that takes time to come will last because it arrived at the right time. One day, you'll look back and see that every closed door, every disappointment, every unexpected turn was actually grace. You'll realize that the delay didn't stop your destiny. It safeguarded it. You weren't being punished, you were being preserved. And when the blessing finally arrives, it will be peaceful. You won't have to chase it, fight for it, or fear losing it, because what God protects, he perfects. So the next time you face a delay, take a deep breath and remind yourself, this is not rejection, this is protection. God is not withholding your promise. He's ensuring that when you step into it, you'll be ready, whole, and strong enough to keep it. The delay was never meant to harm you. It was meant to save you. And in time, you'll see that every not yet was his way of saying, I love you too much to let you settle for less. When the appointed time comes, everything will make sense. There's something sacred about divine timing. The way God works behind the scenes, arranging every detail with precision, even when it seems like nothing is moving. In the waiting, we see pieces, but God sees the full picture. He knows the exact moment when everything will align, when the doors will open, and when the season you've prayed for will finally begin. You might not understand it now, why it took so long, why it was so painful, or why he made you walk through the storm before the sunrise. But one day you'll see that every delay, every detour, every tear had purpose. Life often feels like a puzzle we're trying to solve without seeing the final image. We pick up pieces that don't seem to fit and wonder if we're even building anything at all. But God is the designer. He knows how every piece connects, how every broken season and every painful experience fits perfectly into the story he's writing. What doesn't make sense today will one day become the very proof that his hand was guiding you all along. Nothing is random with him. Not the setbacks, not the silence, not the waiting. Every moment was leading you somewhere intentional. You see, when God finally reveals what he's been doing, it doesn't just make sense. It makes perfect sense. You'll look back and realize why the door closed, why the relationship ended, why the timing was delayed. You'll see how the pain you thought was breaking you was actually building you. The very things that made you question God will become the things that confirm his faithfulness. The waiting was never wasted. It was necessary. The problem is we often judge God's timing by our own clocks. We expect instant answers, quick progress, and smooth paths. But divine timing doesn't follow human logic. God's plan is not rushed because what he's preparing is eternal. When he says, wait, it's not because he's withholding. It's because he's orchestrating. He's aligning the right people, shaping the right opportunities, and preparing your heart to receive what's coming. The moment he knows you're ready and the season is right, everything will fall into place effortlessly. What once felt impossible will suddenly unfold naturally, not by your striving, but by his timing. And when that appointed time comes, you'll feel peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from things finally working out, but the kind that comes from realizing they were always in his hands. You'll understand that God didn't forget you. He was simply waiting for the moment that would bring the greatest glory and the deepest growth. You'll see that his timing wasn't late, it was exact. Sometimes God delays because what you're praying for isn't ready yet. And sometimes because you're not ready yet. But when the preparation is complete on both sides, everything aligns like clockwork. The opportunity appears, the breakthrough happens, the door opens. And when it does, you'll know it wasn't luck or coincidence. It was destiny meeting divine timing. The waiting season will turn into a testimony. The tears will turn into gratitude. The questions will turn into clarity. You'll see that nothing was wasted. Every delay had purpose, every pain had meaning, and every silent season had his fingerprints all over it. What once felt confusing will now feel complete. So hold on a little longer. You may not understand everything now, but you will. The God who began the story hasn't finished writing it yet. When his timing unfolds, it will be beautiful. Not because it happened fast, but because it happened right. And when that moment arrives, when everything finally comes together, you'll whisper through grateful tears, now I see, now I understand, every delay was worth it.